And welcome to week 6 of the Pigskin Picks here on Delaware Live, brought to you by 302 Sports. And again, of course, as always, Trey Mitchell and the other half of the Delaware High School Football Pod, John Buzby. John, Twitter Phil, if he hadn't made the homer pick last week with Smyrna, he'd have gone 8-0. But you're up, you're on, and let's get started with our picks this week. And we're going to start upstate Saturday, 11 a.m., St. Elizabeth's at Wilmington Charter. St. Elizabeth's 2-3. Charter 1-4. Trey, who do you have in this battle?
Yeah, St. A's, they've been a hard team to gauge this season. They're allowing 28 points per game. Then they get a shutout over Glasgow, who, although they're 1-5, they can score. And Charter's offense has been up and down. They've been dropping games to teams that they've dominated the past 2 years. I think Wilmington Charter gets right here at home. I'm gonna go Wilmington Charter.
John, who you got in this one?
Well, they've each had one common opponent, and that's Glasgow. As Trey mentioned, St. Elizabeth beat the Dragons 34-0. Wilmington Charter lost 12-7, and that was Glasgow's first win, as Trey said. I cover Glasgow pretty closely with the Newark Post, and they're going to get a couple wins here, but that kind of gave me the leaning there. Wilmington Charter's a young team. They've lost a lot of talent after being in the state championship game last year. St. Elizabeth was in the exact same boat last year because remember, 2 years ago, they were in the state championship game, lost a lot of talent, struggled last year. So, the games we're picking, this is one of the tougher ones for me, but I'm going to take St. Elizabeth because they're 1 year farther along in the rebuilding process than Wilmington Charter.
The Force, to say the least, is struggling since coming off that state championship appearance last year, but the loss of those 18 seniors has really made it rough sledding. Possibly a must-win game for the Vikings if they plan to be state tournament later on. They're 0-2 on the road this year, but those trips were down south. This is a short trip. I think St. Elizabeth gets the road win here. Trey, the annual Laurel Seaford game, Friday night, 6 o'clock at Seaford. Laurel 2-3, Seaford 2-3.
Yeah, when you think of our typical Sussex County traditions and rivalries down here, it's definitely Seaford versus Laurel. It's usually one of those Week 10 rivalry matchups, but due to all the realignment stuff, it's pushed into the middle of the season. But it's a small town community affair, both small towns, both right in the heart of Sussex County. I like Laurel going into Seaford here. I'll take Laurel.
John, one of the not only Sussex County traditions, the oldest rivalry in the state of Delaware.
Wow, that's hard to believe. Laurel's losses are to 3A Sussex Central, 2A Caravel, which some people think is more or less a 3A team, me included, and a Woodbridge team that's going to be in the playoffs. And they have a win against 3A Caesar Rodney High School. So Laurel's, while their record's not overly impressive, their opponents are. Seaford also has 3 legitimate losses: Woodbridge, First State Military Academy, and Indian River High School. All 3 of those teams, I think, are going to be in the playoffs. But the bottom line is there's not many 1A teams that can beat any 2A team, let alone a 2A team that's probably going to be in the playoffs. I'll take the Bulldogs.
Yeah, this was once a Thanksgiving Day game, but still one of the greatest traditions in downstate sports. Friday night will be the 130th playing of the Seaford Laurel Lions Club game. Seaford leads this series 68-56, but the Bulldogs have won the trophy 20 straight times. The win streak will be legally old enough to drink after Friday night. Laurel gets win number 21 straight. Let's move on to Hodson and Middletown. Hodson 2-3, Middletown 4-1. This game's at Middletown, Trey, 7 o'clock Friday night.
Yeah, the clock's starting to tick on Hodgson's playoff hopes. They have Middletown this week, and then Appo and Sleazy still to go. They're gonna have to win games they shouldn't and pull up an upset against one of these big dogs. We know Middletown. We know they're tough. Their only smudge on their record is playing at Sussex Central. I like Middletown here at home.
John, Hodson, Middletown.
Well, Hodson's in my bottom tier of 3A after a disappointing start to the season. Turnovers, penalties, lack of execution have all hurt the Silver Eagles. Middletown's in my, not quite in the upper tier, and that's because I have Sally sitting by themselves in that upper tier right now, but they're in the upper part of my Middletown. Middletown would have to do a lot wrong on this Friday night at home, and Hodson would have to play nearly a perfect game. Neither of those things are going to happen. I'm going Middletown.
Yeah, Hodson pulls the upset over Cape and Logan, then turns around 7 days later, or 8 days, no, 7 days later, and gets upset by Caesar Rodney. Middletown seems to be hitting their stride since that week 1 loss to Sussex Central. I think the Cavs will prove to be too much for the Silver Eagles. Middletown wins here. And talk about tough games to pick. Here's another one, guys. 6 o'clock kickoff Friday night. 4-1 Woodbridge at 4-1 Milford. Trey, who do you got?
Yeah, this is another old Henlopen South game, and these two have played in some big games before. There's going to be a lot of ground and pound. You're going to hear a lot of Greg Lockett for Milford and Tyler Ely for Woodbridge. Um, I like Woodbridge here as long as they can hang on to the football. I'll take Woodbridge.
They have had fumbleitis, John. Down, you don't get to win as many Henny South games, and here's an old Henny South battle.
Yeah, I like both these coaches, Marvin Dooley, Jed Bell. Both teams play good, tough, fundamental football. Woodbridge got some good wins against Howard and Laurel, and they hung with Sussex Central. Milford's wins are far less impressive, and they got blown out by a William Penn team that's probably not going to make the playoffs. I like and respect Jed Bell a lot, but I'm trying to go perfect on this week's picks. I'm going Woodbridge.
Big 2A District 3 battle Friday night with two highly successful coaches, Marvin Dooley, Jed Bells, we've spoke about. We've seen this game in the last 5 years be a playoff game back and forth. Milford going to the finals one year, Woodbridge going another year. I think the Blue Raiders right now are just a step ahead of the rest of District 3. Woodbridge gets the win in this one. Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock, 4-1 Tower Hill at 5-0 Tatnall, another cross-class game. Trey?
Yeah, Tower Hill's probably Tatnall's last hurdle to go undefeated this year in the regular season. Granted, they have winnable games down the stretch. Doesn't mean they're going to win them, but probably their last major hurdle. Tatnall, they just might be a team of destiny to win a state championship this year. So I think Tatnall gets it done. I think they improved to 6-0.
The defending champs bringing Tower Hill in, John.
Well, Tatnall's 4 wins are against not impressive teams, quite frankly, when I looked at it closely. They do have one good win against a Wilmington Friends team that plays up in 2A, but this may be the first time Wilmington Friends doesn't make the playoffs since this new class system. They've got to win several games down the road. Tower Hill, they're in the same boat. No impressive good wins as far as I'm concerned. They lost to 2A Mount Pleasant. Now, Mount Pleasant might be a playoff team. They're going to be on the cup. This is a coin toss. Whenever it's a coin toss, I take the home team. I'm going with the Hornets.
This week, Tatnall, they're looking to win the independent conference and extend that win streak to 19 games. Tower Hill, they're very young. And their 4 wins, as you said, their opponents are combined 1-15, and plus one of them was a forfeit. The Hornets continue to roll, pick up the conference title. Tatnall wins this game. Another big 2A game. Glenn Frazier and Pat Gariantes will have this call Saturday night, 6:30. 4-2 Red Lion against 2-3 DMA. Trey.
Yeah, it's first district game for DMA this week. And they may have their backs against the wall in what could be a must-win game for them with Caravel looming. They need to be that team that beat Delmar a few weeks ago. A Red Lion win Saturday could set up a District 1 championship showdown with Caravel in week 10. But as long as they don't stumble here, we've seen Red Lion really, they've challenged themselves this year. But, I think in a kind of a must-win situation, DMA finds a way at home.
John, DMA, big win over Delmar. Delmar came on strong after that. Does DMA have enough in them to get Red Lion?
Well, Red Lion's coming off an off week, and they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the state, Evan Budinger. I put him in my top 3 for quarterbacks. Red Lion's got 3 wins against teams that have a combined 4 wins, so not an overly impressive win record. However, they lost to Cape by just 7, and they lost to 3A St. Mark's by 2. So their losses are actually more impressive than their wins. Right. DMA's 0-3 in their last 3 games, but again, an impressive slate: Smyrna, Sussex Central, Archmere. On the podcast this past weekend, I was talking about how DMA has 5 games left. 3 of them are very, very, very winnable. And then there's this one this week against Red Lion and Caravel. DMA does not want to be 5-5 when it's time for the playoff committee to add up all the points, which means they've got to either beat Red Lion or they've got to beat Caravel. And if I'm picking one of those 2 games that they have the best shot to win, and I'm not saying it's a great shot, but it's the better shot, I'm going to pick DMA. They're also playing at home, a very, very tough place to play on a Friday night. I'll go with the Seahawks.
Separation game for me. A chance for Red Lion to pull away from that middle of pack in AA. DMA coming off a tough loss to Archmere last week, and they have Red Lion headed into Wilmington this week. Red Lion is one of those teams that they just get better each week. Traditionally, they've done that. DMA with Caravel down the road, they may, as you said, John, they may be looking at this as not a must-win, but going to be important come tournament time. But I think Red Lion gets the win here with that explosive offense. And John, I guess you'll be at this one, 7 o'clock Friday night, St. Mark's at Appoquinimink, maybe the hottest team in Delaware right now. St. Mark's 3-2. The Jaguars, an impressive 5-0. Trey, who you got?
Yeah, St. Mark's is another team we're having trouble getting a read on right now. Last week they take a big loss to Cape and Lopen, and this week they travel to a hot Appo team. And I don't really want to use football cliches here, but we're going to. Is this a trap game for Appo? Right? I mean, they big win in Central. They got Sally's coming up. They're hot. They're 5-0. I think they stay focused. I think Appo gets it done here.
John, with a minute 31 left in this game, I texted my guys on the field to tell them who the player of the game was to get the chain around their neck. And then the next thing you know, Sussex Central's first and goal.
This Appo defensive line 2 weeks in a row, Marty, Betty came up huge.
Yeah.
But it's their offensive, their wide receiver unit, Noah Hoff, Jasir Rogers, Don Montebell, Francis Drummond. I'd put up against anybody in the state. And their quarterback, Desai Drummond, he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the state, maybe top 3. He gets better every single week. This is the transfer from Howard, who never got to play quarterback as a starter at a varsity game until this year. They've also got another weapon, Benny, Jack Talley. And he was perfect in field goals until you jinxed him last week. And so you jinxed him. But, Appo's as close to Sally's as anyone, and they can't look past St. Mark's, as Trey talked about, because Sally's is next. St. Mark's, sadly, and our thoughts go out to them, they lost their PA announcer suddenly last week. And so, they're going to be playing with their hearts on the sleeve. They're going to have to do everything right, and they're going to have to hope that Appoquinimink does some of the what I call dumb mistakes that they've made over the past several weeks that they've gotten away with. But I'm not sure if you can get away with it against the St. Mark's team. We'll see. The Jags have won close games against their 3A opponents who are almost just as good as them. But against the 3A opponents who they're much better than, they've won rather easily. I believe they are much better than St. Mark's. I'll go with Appoquinimink.
I got to talk to Brian Timpson as he was running to the bus to get out of Georgetown with the win. I mean, he said afterwards, getting out of there, that win was something. And that's 2 years in a row they've beat them like that.
Yep.
Yeah, late in the game. Glenn Frazier, Nick Alessandrini will have the call here Friday night. St. Mark's has just been too up and down for me this season. Appo continues their win streak, and they'll go into the game with Slasianum unbeaten for a big 3A showdown next week. And it's our downstate game of the week, Friday night at Cape and Lopen, 4-1 Sussex Central at 4-1 Cape and Lopen. Myself and Scott Kammerer will be on the call this week. Trey, who do you got in this Eastern Sussex County game?
Yeah, you got another downstate rivalry game. You got the Cape passing attack and the Central running attack. I think Cape's going to have to score quickly when they get the ball because we know Central, they're going to run, and they're going to pound the rock, and they're going to control the clock. And, I think we're looking at a bounce back week for the Knights after that tough loss. Cape's coming off a big win after homecoming. But that loss to Hodson just kind of makes it confusing, right? They're a little up and down themselves. I know they're 4-1, but, blowing that game to Hodson makes you kind of think. I think it's going to be a humongous crowd. I think both these teams have something to play for here, obviously. Cape's coming off that big homecoming win. Central's kind of looking to rebound. I think Central comes into Cape and Lopen and get it done. I'm going to go Sussex Central.
Big game down here in 3A, John. Last year they split 1-1, but Cape won the big one.
Both teams played down a class for 3 of their first 5 games, and a lot of people question whether that was a smart thing to do. Sussex Central could be 5-0, but they couldn't score with 2 attempts inside the 2-yard line last week. Cape's loss to that Hodson team, as Trey mentioned, it's just, at the time we thought maybe that was a legitimate loss. Starting to think that's not the case anymore. The Sussex Central Wing T, it's tough to defend, and John Wells, we know he prides himself on seeing if he can take an entire quarter with 1 possession. I don't think Cape's defense can consistently stop the Sussex Central offense time and time again, which I think they would have to do because I don't think their offense is going to get a lot of time on the field. I'm going to go with Sussex Central.
Just when you think Cape and Lopen Vikings are down with the loss to Hodson, they come back last week and handle St. Mark's. How does Sussex Central bounce back from that first loss of the season and then going on the road to a rival stadium? Both are 4-1, and Sussex Central is probably, even though they've played down, more battle-tested with those early non-district schedule. But their opponents are combined 17-9, but it's coming at a cost. 4 starters out last week with injuries. Coach Wells says he'll be getting most of them back this week. On the other hand, Cape appears healthy and focused at midseason, and that's where they turned it on last year. Tune into this game for the battle of these 2 experienced big front lines with offense and defense. That's going to be where this game is won. I think the Gold Knights will control the clock, shorten the game, and that's going to make the difference. It's going to be a close one. It's going to be an exciting one. but Sussex Central comes out on top Friday night. So I know you'll be in the booth, I think, at Appo, right, John?
Yeah, I'm the PA announcer for
So
Appoquinimink,
you
so
won't
looking
have your,
forward to
your
that.
three laptop setup going on there.
No, I'll have my phone though going on.
I was going to
Probably
say,
listening to you guys.
what game's going to interest you the most?
Yeah, there's a lot of them this week that are going to interest me, but I can tell you there's not. I'm always, of course, obviously interested in the Apple St. Mark's. That's one of the ones that, I got a keen interest in all the time. But that DMA Red Lion game, I think, is really going to be of interest in because I'm not sure either of those teams can beat Caravel, but it'll be interesting to see if one of them really sets themselves apart from the rest of that 2A pack. Now, Woodbridge is still in there as well, also, but the upstate, at least in this county, District 1 and half of District 2, that Red Lion, Caravel, DMA mix, that's kind of the big question that has yet to be answered. Everybody's already separated Caravel. And its question is which team is going to be the one that will be in that state championship on the opposite side of the field of them.
I heard you say on your podcast that District 3 could have 4 or 5 teams in the playoffs, and the way it's looking, they very well could.
Yeah, and
if Trey gets one free ticket this week. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and that's a key thing in 2A because only the ones that clinch the district get the automatic seed. So the second 2 teams in 1 and 2 may not be in the playoffs. We'll see.
That's right. Trey, you get one free ticket to a high school football game this week. Where are you taking it? Who are you watching?
We'll have to go Central and Cape, man. Both their schools bring a good crowd. Like you said, last year, 2 great games. Central won the first one, Cape won in the big one in the playoffs, the one that counted. I think, you're looking at 2 at this point in time, 2 playoff teams. So, I mean, it's not only bragging rights, not only a rivalry, but we're looking at seeding going into the state tournament, especially when you have Sally's, Middletown, Appo all playing well up north. So big game, a lot of stuff on the line here. I like that Central Cape game.
John, Appo loses one of those 2 down the road and Central wins, we could see that game again in November.
Well, and it's proven that, Appo was 1 yard better is what it came down to. And so that could be a great game. And, we're going to get to see Appo play Sally's. And what that's going to tell us is Sally's as far apart from the rest of the field as Caravel is in Class 2. And I hope not, because no true football fan, other than maybe if you're Sally's, wants to see them run the table and blow out everybody in the playoffs. That's no fun for anybody. So I'm hoping it's as crunched up at the top as I think it could be, potentially.
Yeah, we need close games so we have the stands filled Thanksgiving weekend for the championship.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
John, thanks again for coming on, folks. Watch the Delaware High School Football Power. Not watch. I guess you can watch it. It is on YouTube. Comes out Saturdays or Sundays at noon. Check it out. A lot of reviews and some awards and some good stuff there. It's fun to listen to. I check it out every week. I get some information off of it. Actually, I sent Marty a trivia question this week.
Oh, did you?
trying to get a little below the canal flavor in his trivia questions.
That's funny. Well, Marty, I can tell you, Benny, the first thing I do on Sunday morning is go back to your X feed and read everything that you've given us. So we steal from each other.
There you go. Again, thanks a lot, folks. For John Buzby, Trey Mitchell, I'm Benny Mitchell. We're going to see you at kickoff.